Hello buddy, it's vanburman here. Welcome to my top 5 games of 2017. They said 18 then. We are in 2018 right now. And it has taken me a little bit of time to do this. I've been off with, well, I've had the flu, I've had a cold. I've also had to move place, so this all may look a lot different. It certainly does. That's the idea. Don't know what's going on with my hair today, by the way. So yeah, you'll just have to forgive that one. It looks a bit stupid and there's no way I can put the headset on without it looking even more stupid. So yeah, so just the usual disclosure or disclaimer should I say before I start my top 5 games. That's somehow made it worse. Is these are just the games that I played last year, so there's not going to be, for example, Mario Odyssey is not going to be on there. I didn't play that, and those sort of ones. There is, I do give a couple, or I will give an honourable mention at the start to a game that I really did want to play but didn't get the chance to. So if there's a game on here that's not on the list that you think should be, which is fair enough, leave your comments down below if you disagree with any of my selections. Then it's probably because I either haven't played it or I may have played it, but it wasn't as good as any of the 5 that are on the list. So yeah, there were a couple of games that I did omit in the end, which some of you may be a bit surprised by, but we'll have to see. And yeah, hope you enjoy the video, guys. So kicking things off, we're going to be looking at an honourable mention, which is Persona 5, which I didn't get to play. I am actually quite a big fan of Atlus's series that they do with this sort of stuff. I've not actually played Persona before. My previous experience with a different series, but in terms of being a RPG, a turn-based kind of gamer, this is definitely one that I did want to play. Unfortunately, I couldn't actually find it for anywhere near a decent enough price when it first initially came out. And then by the time it did have a sizable discount, I'd already decided, I'd already sold my PlayStation 4. So yeah, I didn't get a chance to play this one. I'm certain it would have been the top 5 games though. I can't see it not being. And it's, definitely one that I would have enjoyed. If it does ever come to the PC, I'll be getting it. But, for now, it's not something I will play or will have played, I'm sure, even this year. But yeah, if you have played it this year, let me know in the comments if it's worthy of one of the top spaces on the top 5 games. That'd be really good to know. But from what I've read and seen about it, I'm sure it would have done. The 5th game on the list goes to They Are Billions, which is a survival RTS style game set in a steampunk universe. And it's one of those that a lot of people maybe possibly haven't seen or heard of before. It's in early access. I haven't actually yet put a video up on my channel about it, actually. I do have a few clips and stuff of me playing it that needs to go up, but obviously with not having internet for a bit, I've not been able to do so. So yes, that is taking up the number 5 spot on my top 5 games of the year, even though it did come out in sort of middle of December in early access. But I've had such great fun with it. It's like a bit of a throwback to days where I used to play quite a lot of Command and Conquer and Dune and those sort of strategy games. I never really got into StarCraft or anything like that, but this has a whole different twist on it. Literally, it gets to the stage where you could honestly have like one zombie sneak in your camp early on, and that can be it, game over. So even though individually zombies are not really that much of they're not really a threat. So just the way that the whole game is structured and how it makes you manage your resources and actually sort out your your defenses and whatnot, it does add a decent level of strategy to it. I think that there's still a lot more they can do with it. Like they want to build out a campaign mode and stuff for that this year. But they do have the survival mode, which is the main one that they're using at the minute. So yeah, do go and check that out. I will link all the games in the description if they're on Steam. And yeah, you can go and have a look and see what you guys think. But it has been pretty, I don't know, it's just something totally out of the blue, something I wasn't expecting to like. I was just suggested to it by a friend, and yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. So well deserving of the number 5 spot. And number 4 on the list goes to Nioh, which is a Dark Souls style game set in the Japanese-esque universe, I suppose. Well, not I suppose, it definitely is. And it's also come out now on Steam as well as PlayStation 4. I played it on the PlayStation 4 version, and it is devilishly difficult. I did find it very challenging. I've only played Demon Souls. I've not played any of the Dark Souls really at all. Maybe just half an hour around someone's house, and that was about it. So I'm not really used to those sort of style of games. Maybe that's why I put it so high up on the list, because I did enjoy the challenge. It's quite freaky at times as well. It takes a lot of strategy to deal with certain enemies, and your timing has to be impeccable, which mine is not. So I ended up dying quite a lot, as you may or may not gather. But no, in terms of a thing like just the art style, everything else that goes along with it, I think they've done it all perfectly. I obviously don't really know how much it takes on the modern Dark Souls games, whether there's a lot of influences there or not. But in terms of just the game by itself, I thought it was quite brilliant, and it's quite brilliant in how devilish it is, at the how the gameplay is, and I just thought all of it just melded together really well. It definitely felt like pretty much like I was playing Demon Souls back in the day, but Demon Souls I always found Demon Souls I couldn't even do. So this one felt like the right balance of hard difficulty, but also you felt like you could overcome it. I definitely didn't feel like that in Demon Souls. I realise I'm comparing it a lot to Dark Souls, Demon Souls, but I suppose that's what most people are going to do, so that's where I sort of want to draw the comparisons there with the games, I suppose. But no, it's definitely one well worth checking out, especially if you're into that sort of feudal Japanese samurai era games, those sort of stuff. Then I'd definitely recommend going and trying it, especially if you're okay with dealing with a Dark Souls-esque difficulty. The third spot on the list goes to Middle-earth Shadow of War. Now, I have watched quite a few other people's top 5 games, top 10 games, whatever, while I've been off, but people have drastically omitted this. In fact, this has gone in like the worst lists and all that sort of stuff, which I think is quite criminal. I really enjoyed the first game, Shadow of Mordor, and I feel like Shadow of War just improved upon it in many aspects. Don't get me wrong, I know that there's the whole issue with the loot boxes and the grind at the end of the game and all that sort of stuff, but I actually really enjoyed the fortress defense at the end of the game. I really enjoyed the gameplay. I thought it, as I say, improved on Shadow of Mordor. A lot of people didn't feel like that. They felt as though you were forced into buying loot boxes, that sort of stuff. I can honestly say that I didn't like the introduction of that, and I personally isn't something I would have chosen to put in the game, but I actually went for the whole game without, feeling the need to spend any money on loot boxes. I did buy the Orc loot boxes with the in-game currency, and I did do the challenges to get the gold to buy some of the premium boxes, which, yeah, saying it out loud is, a big reason as to why it's number 3 and it's not up in the top 2, number 1. It definitely had the potential to be as well, really pushing for the top spot, but those things do let it down. In terms of just the combat and everything, I really enjoy it. I've never played, Batman. A lot of people say, Shadow, the Warner Brothers games, that they're all very similar. But because I never played that, it doesn't feel old, it doesn't feel stale to me. The last time I played that style of system was back in Shadow of Mordor. Enjoyed it then, really enjoy it now. So, yeah, no issues. Definitely, probably the Orcs felt a lot more expendable than they were in the previous game, which is negative overall. But, I did get some really good interactions with a couple of Orcs that I, found myself, that built up, leveled them up, got them in the fighting in the pits. And, yeah, I don't know, it balances it quite well. It's one of those games where people are going to get different experiences depending on how they play it, depending on, what choices you make, who you encounter, that sort of stuff. Which, spoiler alert, but for the last 2 games, they're more story-driven, more predictable in terms of what the player's experience is going to be, whereas this one I think is a bit more dynamic, and that's what I liked about it this year. And it's a game that I've very actually nearly completed. I think I'm on like 92% completion, so yeah, definitely spent more than enough time playing it. But it's one I do recommend going and playing, and yeah, I thought the story ended quite well and quite fittingly, even though a lot of people have criticised that. But my opinion, it goes number 3 on the list. Now, depending on what side of the fence you sit on or how you feel about this particular game, you're either going to be pretty pleased or pretty upset that I've included this one at number 2, but it is Zelda Breath of the Wild, an absolute masterpiece of a game. Thoroughly enjoyed it this year. I've not played too many Zelda games before, only one all the way through and the second one about halfway through, and they're two of the more modern ones, which people are always very surprised about, that I've not played more of the older ones. But back in the day I didn't really have, Nintendo consoles or anything like that, so didn't get a huge amount of chance to do so. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. It obviously has its flaws, like the weapon durability, and that could be a positive and a negative. I felt as though it wasn't as story driven as I'd have maybe liked. I felt like it was a bit too open worldy. Sometimes, I felt there's a little bit of there wasn't really a sense of direction at times, but that's not really that big of a deal, big of an issue, because it is absolutely beautiful looking game. Graphically, it's not gone for realistic graphics. It's done what it's needed to do, given the type of game that it's trying to portray. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had no issues with playing this game all the way through, and probably would quite happily play through it again. I know that there's a Wii U emulator out for the PC, so I might see if I can get that up and running, play it on there a bit as well. But no, it's one of those games where you can easily spend over 100 hours in and thoroughly enjoy every minute. So, yeah, for that, it's well deserving of the number 2 spot, and take nothing away from Breath of the Wild at all. Yeah, quite clearly one of the best games this year, but not quite as good as the number 1 spot, I'm afraid. And number 1, the position that we've all been waiting for me to announce. This may come as a bit of a surprise to some people, I say, because some people will be a bit disappointed about the second place. But in first place, I've gone with Mass Effect Andromeda. Absolute masterpiece of a game. Said that about Breath of the Wild, but this one cannot be understated. The facial animations were incredible. The story, breathtaking. Just the general gameplay itself was free-flowing, fluid, brilliant. I had absolutely no issues, no issues with my guns, no issues with jumping around, no issues with getting stuck in places, no issues with objectives not loading. Actually, that's not true. I had all those issues. So, yeah, unsurprisingly, Mass Effect Andromeda is not the number 1 game of the year. In fact, it's, for me, been the most disappointing game of the year, and maybe for the last 5 years, actually. Absolutely incredibly bad. I do know some people that enjoyed it, but for me, God, I'll be honest with you, I never want to see another Mass Effect game again after that one. So, but all joking aside, the number 1 spot is Horizon Zero Dawn. Yes, it's very predictable. I said so in a video earlier on last year that it was between Zelda and Horizon. Nothing that came out later on in the year changed that for me. It was still between those two. And I got to say, Horizon was brilliant. And looking back at the studio's history and the games they've done previously, and then think about them coming in and making an open world game, you would have thought it would be a disaster. But actually, I think what they've done is they've looked at all the positive aspects, all the good points that different games have put out in terms of, how they've managed an open world like Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, all those different games, taken the good parts of it and added in their own spice there, and really created quite a compelling game, quite a compelling story as well. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't think there was any part where I felt, I don't particularly want to play this, or don't want to, do that mission or whatever. The open world BS as there is in all open world games was fairly minimal, which I quite liked, or it all seemed like it had a purpose. I will be honest, if I was to go back and replay it again, I'd do a lot more of the side quests. I think I missed out on a good chunk of them, probably like 20% of them I didn't do, which I would go back and do now. It was also equally challenging, and yeah, just very intrigueful, if that's not even a word, but an intriguing game as to its gameplay and its story. The negatives I did have, even though it is number 1, so it should be all praise, but negatives, the final boss was very uninspired for my liking. I wasn't too keen on the setup of what could be a sequel. Trying to avoid spoilers there, but won't go into that, but that disappointed me slightly. I think that's probably actually about it. Yeah, they're probably about my 2 biggest criticisms. I mean, they are fairly big criticisms, but ones that I can get past. You know, the ending sequence itself was all fine, all, you know, very good, but the end boss was not great. Not great. Also, there was a DLC brought out for Horizon Zero Dawn. I've not played that, so I can't comment on that specifically. I'm not adding that into the score. You know, that obviously might have changed it, moved it higher, or kept it number 1, or moved it lower potentially. But no, absolutely brilliant game. If you haven't gone out and played Horizon Zero Dawn already, I recommend going and picking it up. I think they're bringing out like an Ultimate Edition or whatever they're calling it, and that gives you access to the main game and the DLC as well. So yeah, do consider picking that up, supporting it. Well worth playing, and I'm sure the DLC is going to be good. I believe it's like a proper full whole expansion. So yeah. Anyway, guys, hope you all enjoyed my top 5 games of 2017. As always, if you got any comments, queries, suggestions, you want to tell me your top 5 list, put them in the comments below. I'd be interested to see that. And I will also have links to the games down below that are relevant and on Steam, so not many of them, but still, yeah, it was a really good year for gaming this year, I felt. Even though there was a lot of controversies and a lot of negative, the positives were really positive. So I think that sort of counterbalances it. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you all very soon. Goodbye.